Good morning, everybody, seniors and friends. I'm Dr. Ambika Sudupa. I'm working as a consultant developmental pediatrician for Aster RV Hospital. I'll be there in Aster Clinic Child Development Center thrice a week. So also I'm assistant professor in Indira Gandhi Institute of Child Health. As you all know now, today's topic I'll be covering high-risk newborn neurodevelopmental follow-up and also a small topic about stuttering. High-risk newborn follow-up is a continuation topic from last week's by Dr. Nikhil, who covered care of a preterm child. So this might be connected to it as well. High-risk newborns are most vulnerable to develop neurodevelopmental delays. Early detection of these delay and identification of the perinatal factors and their prevention can prevent disability in the later life. How do we classify this as a severe risk, high risk? Whom do we call as a high risk baby? So any baby who's born less than 30 weeks of gestation, birth weight being less than 1,250 grams, and if there is evidence of fetal growth retardation less than third centile, and certain factors of intrauterine insults like severe maternal preeclampsia, seizures, monochorionic twins, triplets, or higher orders, clinical chorioamniotis, cord prolapse, abruption of placenta, absence of end-diastolic flow or reversal of the same. Also recently added previous perinatal losses, IUD or neonatal deaths, 2 or more abortions. So basically bad obstetric history. All this will come under intrauterine insults. And there is no history of any usage of antenatal steroids, need for extensive resuscitation at birth, including chest compressions and epinephrine, ventilation requiring for more than 7 days, 10 days, with abnormal blood gases and air leak. There is evidence of shock with hypotension and requiring steroids. Symptomatic hypoglycemia for more than 5 days.
Thank you, ma'am.
Blood sugars.
Neurodevelopmental outcome. Oh, high risk newborn, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Less than 32 milligram per deciliter. Grade 3, in neurosonogram, grade 3 evidence of IVH, ventriculomegaly, periventricular leukomalacia at 30 to 40 weeks. Also, if there is post-hemorrhagic hydrocephalus, and if there is evidence of hypotension, sepsis-induced hypotension, and meningitis. Jaundice, if there is requirement of exchange transfusion and evidence of bind. Hypothyroidism, not normalized by 1. Others will be MET grade 2 or more, ROP, laser photocoagulation requirement, and poor weight. So these are a few divisions where we classify them as high risk. So any one factor which falls under severe risk category, we should consider that child as a high risk for poor neurodevelopmental outcomes. If, for example, if the child is 32 weeks but was not given steroids and required extensive resuscitation, we should consider that child to be a high risk for poor neurodevelopmental outcome. How are we going to follow up with these severe risk newborns? Each center or each hospital or each institute can follow its own SOP. This is a SOP which is used in most of the places. 0 to 6 months, they follow up monthly where they see growth parameters including length, weight, head circumference, newborn screening based on ABC categories, OAE, ROP screening, BERA, hearing screening also will come under national screening programs, 80 angles up to 1 year of age, vaccination appropriate for the age, CDC grading of head control, TDSC, and LIST. So, what this TDSC?
Dr. Ambika,
Yes,
can you just explain expand all the previous?
Yes. I'm going
some
to.
nurses are also joining it.
I'm going to do that. LEST means Language Evaluation Scale of Trivandrum 0 to 3. This is a screening chart. Any healthcare provider can use this. It has two categories, 0 to 3 and 3 to 6 years. It is divided into months, 0 to 36 months, based on the chronological age and corrected for a preterm child. So any milestone or item which is not passed left side to the particular month. For example, if the child is 4-month-old, we usually draw a line against this 4 months, and all the first 3 items, that means 3 items left side to the 4 month should be completed. So that is how we calculate, or that is how we mark. We mark tick for a achieved item and no for a delayed item. So 1 item delayed is also considered as delay. So what do? We do early intervention, stimulation therapy, parent counseling for every high-risk baby. Early intervention can include oil massage and therapy, which is scientifically proven to have its own benefit. Stimulation therapy like visual and hearing. Example, talking to the baby with making different kinds of expressions, singing to the baby, or ringing a small bell with minimum sound, tactile stimulation like massaging the baby. All these includes stimulation therapy and early intervention. Therapy for specific delays, example, not smiling. So if the child comes at 4 months and they say the child is not smiling, smiling should be achieved by end of 2 months. So if it is not smiling, we give therapy for that particular item. That is meant by specific therapy for a delay. So language evaluation can be divided into 0 to 3 years, 3 to 6 years. We can draw a line against the particular month, and the items left side to that month should be achieved, completed below. So for the 50th month, all the 12 items should be completed. TDS means Trivandrum Development Screening Chart. This is more of gross and fine motor milestones. For example, sitting and standing and self-raising, fine prehension. So this is also plotted in a similar way as LEST. This is validated against Denver Developmental Scale. It is also divided into 0 to 3 years and 3 to 6 years. TDS scoring means scoring of head control is also developed by CDC of Mother and Child Institute of Trivandrum. They have 0 to 5 grades. Grade 0 is no head control at all. This should be assessed at end of 4 months. Sorry, at end 4 completed months. Grade 1 will be head erect and steady momentarily. Grade 2 in the dorsal should be examined in dorsal suspension. Lifts head with the body. Grade 3 will be prone position. The child will be able to lift the chest a little bit with the help of the arms. Grade 4 will be holds head steady while mother carries and moves around against the gravity. Grade 5 will be head balanced at all times. So grading should be done at the end of 4th month, and anything grade 3 and above is normal. Grade 0, 1, 2 is abnormal, and therapy should be given to achieve the next grade. For example, if the child comes at 4 completed months, not a corrected age of 4 completed months. And the child's head control is just grade 1. When you're examining, the head just comes for a moment and it will go back when you're pulling to sit. Then you give therapy for the child to achieve grade 2. By next month, you can I will be showing an ICU blue book where you monitor and record the progress. A specific therapy should be given only to achieve the next grade. You cannot teach them to stand or sit at this point. So you will only have to make sure that you teach them to achieve grade 2 from grade 1, and anything grade 3 and above is normal for 4 completed months. Likewise, grading for sitting is also there. Grade 0 is no sitting at all. Grade 1 is sits momentarily, examined by 8 completed months. Grade 2 is sits 30 seconds or more by leaning forward. Grade 3 is sits with back straight. Grade 4 is can manipulate sidewise while sitting. So you just keep some toy next to the child, and if they can reach for it, that is good enough. Grade 5 is raises self to sitting position from lying down. This should be assessed at 8 completed months. Anything grade 3 and above is normal. 0, 1, 2 grading is abnormal. So similarly, we have to give therapy if it is not achieved to achieve the next grade. If the child is just grade 2 at 8 complete months, we have to give therapy, specific therapy to achieve grade 3. Scoring for standing is assessed at 12 completed months. Grade 0 is no standing at all. Grade 1 is stands, holding on to furniture momentarily. Grade 2 is takes few steps with both hands supported. Grade 3 is can stand alone with legs apart. Grade 4 is comes to standing position through weight on hands. Grade 5 is takes few steps without support. So anything grade 3, 4, 5 is normal after 12 completed months. So even for that matter, even if it is grade 3 at 12 completed months, we can give therapy to make it grade 4. So for high risk babies, early intervention means this is every grade we are monitoring, and every grade we are giving some therapy, home-based therapy for the parents and baby. So after 6 to 12 months, we can call them 2 or 3 monthly follow-ups, where again we see growth parameters including weight, height, and head circumference. AT angles, I will be telling regarding that also, that mainly we see adductor angles, heel to ear, popliteal angle, and dorsiflexion. At 6 to 12 months, we see CDC grading of sitting and standing, which I mentioned. Sitting will be 8 completed months and standing will be 12 completed months. LEST and TDS. LEST is for language evaluation and TDS is for gross and fine motor. These two are screening assessments for development. If it vaccination and comorbidity evaluation. So I'll just show this. So when we do this TDS LEST, if we find if there is any delay present, we have to immediately start doing an objective assessment for these children. Excuse me. 1 to 3 years, 6 monthly follow-up is enough, where we see growth parameters, developmental screening by TDS and LEST, DASI, which is Developmental Assessment Scale for Indian Infants. This is an objective assessment done by trained personnel only. MCHAT is a screening tool, questionnaire of 21 questions to rule out autism in children. It can be done up to 3 years of life. So if we have any positive signs for autism in MCHAT, we immediately have to start them on therapy. No need of getting an immediate confirmation. certain home-based therapy can be advised by the primary healthcare provider itself, which can be assessed during the follow-up. BERA is for hearing assessment if it's not done or if it was abnormal initially. VEP is visual evoke potential to rule out any visual impairment in high-risk babies who have changes of ROP, like who had undergone laser photocoagulation or a requirement of any anti-VEGP, GF. So for more than 3 years, we usually just do TDS and LEST and IQ assessment. After every evaluation, this is a key principle where we start early intervention, stimulation therapy, parent counseling. These three are mandatory for every visit and every consultations. Therapy for specific delay. If at all you appreciate any delay, we'll have to give therapy for that particular delay. So not a blanket therapy till 1 year, you just do these and your child will be okay. So that is not how we do a therapy for specific delay. If an item in the screening is found to be delayed, we give therapy for it. We advise specific remedy or specific measures that mother has to do or the parent has to do, so that by next follow-up, at least we are able to achieve that item. Follow-up of moderate to high mild risk babies, that can be done 2 or 3 monthly based on the patient load of particular center, and about 6 months, once in 6 months should be enough. So it should be primarily assessed by all these neurodevelopmental outcomes should be assessed by a developmental pediatrician. It is not a hard and fast rule. Even a primary caregiver can cultivate the habit of checking of all these things, and if there is a delay present, can go in for objective assessment. Objective assessment means it is given as a report where a DQ is given, development quotient is given, or IQ is given after 30 months. BKT means Bennett-Kamat test. So individual therapy can be given for particular milestone which is not achieved. So I'll be just showing you the blue book, which I am very particular about following. So this is follow book for NICU. Ma'am, can you see this?
We are not able to see.
This is blue book is not seen, ma'am.
Illa, not see.
Okay, so
You will have to share the new window on that.
New share. Yeah. So can you see now, ma'am?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
So this is a blue book. This is a book which each and every baby passing out from NICU should be handed over before the discharge, and should be assessed during the stay as well. So this also states it is a neurodevelopment assessment and early intervention booklet. I'll just quickly brush through the components of these. Certain things can be done by nursing professionals also. So follow-up of NICU babies. The initial page contains name of the baby, hospital ID, and the parent's education, name and age, caretakers, who are the relation and who are the primary caretakers, and their address, phone numbers, obstetrician if required. Again, gestation weeks, birth weight, blood group of the baby and mother's blood group, place of birth, date of discharge, antenatal problems, what and all were there, and neonatal diagnosis and major interventions done. So in this, they have this table where a particular child can be marked against what problems the baby had. For example, if baby ABC had mother had maternal fever during her pregnancy, and no antenatal steroid was taken, but the baby also had IUGR. So we mark this, we mark fetal growth retardation and no. So child will still be under severe risk, but we mark it for that baby. And we keep this for our reference. Why is this baby a severe risk? Next page will be regarding the weight of the child. From the week of gestation, usually what we say is high risk baby below 30 weeks. So it is started from 22 weeks. We mark the weight, head circumference and length. So it is assessed every week and we mark it against the chart. And why is this important? One point, very quick point, is if there is change of centiles to lower grade, that should alert us, and that should that should be evidence for us to start immediate therapy for those. Low birth weight chart. This is during the NICU stay as well, where we plot the chart against the number of days of life. Next, what they have given in this book is what do we do as a development supportive care. DSE is also a very big concept where we start the care from the NICU stay itself to prevent any disabilities or delays. I'll just quickly go through this, which is very important. At day one, what we do, parent counseling and early parent participation program. So we encourage them to do, for example, kangaroo mother care, and making them aware of how to take care of the high risk baby and the risk factors recorded, and to express the milk and encourage early feeding, as Dr. Nikhil mentioned in the last class. Day 3 to 7, we usually screen for congenital hypothyroidism, OFC, hearing assessment, medical risk factor recording in stratification again, early stimulation can be like visual therapy, giving high contrast cards and attached to the NICU bed of that baby, or soothing sounds, or encouraging mother to go and hold the baby as kangaroo mother care, and singing to the baby, humming to the baby. Parents touch and talk to the baby, getting involved in the care of the baby. So all these things can be started and should be started in the NICU setup itself. OFC is occipitofrontal circumference, head circumference, that is. 1 to 2 weeks, we do ultrasound of the head circumference. And so why is this mentioned? We can tick against all the items that is mentioned, that it is not missed before discharge. So 1 to 2 weeks of life, neurosonogram, OFC, head circumference, repeat of thyroid screening if it was abnormal, and starting of multivitamin, HMF, and based on the particular NICU setup and protocols. Medical risk factor recorded, again revisiting the chart, early stimulation, and non-nutritive sucking if the baby was born very preterm. 2 to 3 weeks, usually we screen them for ROP. Head circumference is a must, and weight of the child. At 1 month, ROP screening and opinion by them till 44 weeks. Blood levels of calcium and alkaline phosphatase and HB. Head circumference, weight, ferritin, and if needed, iron supplement based on the SOPs of the particular NICU. At 6 to 8 weeks, they will be coming for us for neurodevelopmental follow-up, where we do all this regular neuro assessments, weight, and early stimulation. Lab test, we can at discharge, we can enter all these things where HB, ferritin, TSH, calcium and iron supplements if needed, multivitamin if needed, all those things can be recorded. Neuroimaging at 7 to 14 days, 36 to 40 weeks of gestation, and MRI if required. So this recordings can be entered. So each booklet will go for each child going out of NICU, so that all the entries will be made and the records will be maintained. At 34 to 40 weeks or at discharge, we have to make sure we have an ultrasound done, Hearing assessment done, BCG and OPV done, hepatitis B given, and HMF sachet if started before to be stopped, calcium and phosphate, neuro examination by the neonatologist or the DP. Neuro behavior like sucking and swallowing should be well achieved, good movements in all four limbs, and sleeps 2 to 3 hours after a feed. Detailed physical examination by the treating physician. Discharge advice. Pre-discharge checklist. This includes the marking of tick by either nurses or the doctors, where the labs and neuro exams are done. This is a chart for a Hammersmith form. This is an observation neurology examination of a newborn, where it is just observed particular exam and it is tick against the form. What do we see at this booklet? It gives only columns for 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, and 18 months. But when we are following up the high risk baby monthly, we can record it with extra sheets as well. So what they are given at 4 completed months, they want us to see once hemoglobin, developmental screening, gross motor fine, DDST means Denver scales, 80 angles, adductor, heel to ear, popliteal dorsiflexion, and scarf sign. If there is hyper or hypotonia or asymmetry, we can record it and give therapy for the same. Muscle tone, if it is increased, decreased, or normal. Reflexes, deep tendon reflexes, and CDC grading of head control. And also to check if there is persistent primitive reflexes. At 8 months, again we see the developmental milestones, 80 angles, muscle tone, and CDC grading, it will be sitting at that time. Next follow-up will be at 12 months, where again we can start doing DASI for them, where mental and motor clusters will be interpreted, 80 angles, muscle tone, DTRs, deep tendon reflexes, and CDC grading of standing. All these milestones and all these various tests are a reinforcement to check if there is no delay in the particular child. 18 months corrected age, we'll have to see REALS. REALS means receptive and expressive language assessment scales. So if the language is age appropriate or no. DASI is again development assessment, objective wise, done by a trained professional only. Any abnormal movements noted, diagnosis, complete diagnosis, and if there is any problems. Hearing assessment, they have a form given where at discharge, what was the reading, if it was bilateral refer or bilateral pass, and it should be repeated if it's pass, if required after 3 months. ROP screening. So the ophthalmologist will be marking at each visit what is the stage of ROP if it was there, and if there is any problems like squint, refraction, any cataract, or functional vision disturbances. So what do we see in the follow-up? We see if there is any physical problems or physical abnormalities on the examination, any medicines that is supposed to be taken or given, any surgeries, there is a vaccination card. Neurodevelopment follow-up is a different column by itself, where, for example, now, if the child comes at 4th month and the CDC head control is grade 3, we give them therapy, call them at 5th month, we mark it here. So now the child is improved 1 grade and we show that to the mother and give her more motivation to continue for the follow-up. So this is how we grade any CDC grading. 80 angles also, the angle we can measure and we can keep serial documentation. Gross motor and fine motor assessment reports. DASI, whenever we do, we write the mental age and motor age, and if the improvement following that. Vision, hearing, and interpretation. We also document the developmental intervention that we have done. in each follow-up visit, and if there is any referral required to other therapists. Usually, they say that at least till 2 to 3 years, the primary health provider can give the development supportive care. Every Blue Book has a DTS form if required. We can use that, or we can use the TDS charts. This is a growth chart where head circumference, length, and weight is marked for the boys. Each blue book has charts for girls and boys. Birth to 2 years we can mark in these, where follow-up visits also we have to serially monitor. Blue Book also has information regarding breastfeeding for mothers and danger signs when they have to come back, and kangaroo mother care and the importance of those. So that was regarding the Blue Book. That was the high risk newborn follow-up in brief. Once we start doing it, we can make sure that it is going smoothly. Coming to the next topic, stuttering. It is also called as disfluency because there is some amount of disfluency occurring in each and every child's developmental stages. So it is also called as stuttering or developmental disfluency. Excuse me. Speech production disorders can be categorized under 3 divisions. One is speech sound disorder, where the individual finds it difficult to produce sounds and segments. Childhood apraxia of speech, where there is coordinated movement difficulty. Last will be this topic called stuttering, where the flow and fluency will be difficult. So it is the most common type of fluency disorder. It is characterized by repetition, prolongations of sound, blockage of airflow, interjections, and revisions. Stuttering may also include secondary behaviors, physical tension, avoidance, and reduced communication. We should make sure that stuttering, and it is usually it does not include any problems with understanding of the language, reading, or writing. Usually it is seen among 1% of school-aged children, 5 to 10% among preschool children, and much lower in adults. Male is to female ratio is younger than 6 years is usually 2:1, and it increases 4:1 during puberty and adulthood, because females tend to usually spontaneously resolve. 30 to 40% of the childhood stutter may result in speech sound disorder. What is it regarding family transmission and genetics? Usually mothers or women who stutter can have children who stutter. Predisposition include inheritance or acquired difficulty in motor coordination and temperament, which reacts to stress, and it causes muscular tension. Natural history, stuttering appears between ages 18 months to 5 years. 70% of the children will recover. Early onset before the age 2 to 3 years is usually spontaneously resolved. It can be exacerbated by increased demands in school and home, and in a child's performance. Also, if there is any birth of a sibling, separation from a parent, or family movement. Management includes clinical exam and evaluation and treatment. Signs, usually stuttering, key points is stuttering more than 6 months, suspect a chronic problem, some serious issues. If it's not reduced in frequency or severity, it is a problem. And if the effort is increased and emotion is distressed, and if there is avoidance by the child, think of a serious issue. And usually they result in bullying and worsening of the emotional status. So all this should be covered in our history. How do we differentiate normal disfluency from a severe stuttering? I'll just cover each row. Speech behavior in a normal disfluency, it will be occasional brief repetitions of sound, syllables or short words, like example of this written. Mild stuttering is frequent long repetitions of sound, syllables or short words, prolongation of sound. Severe stuttering includes very frequently they start repeating the sounds and frequent prolongations and blockages. Other behavior, usually in normal disfluency, the occasional pauses will be there, hesitations will be there, fillers will be there, changing of words or thought will be there. In mild cases, there is blinking, looking away, or physical tension around mouth. Severe stuttering includes more evidence of struggle, including pitch, raise in voice, extra words used to start. When it is mostly noticeable, in normal cases, when the child is very excited, happy, tired, sick, or when listeners are not listening properly. In mild cases, it is present in all the situation. In severe cases, present whenever the child is speaking. What is the child's reaction during this stuttering? Normal disfluency, the child will not even notice the issue. In mild cases, the child may show little concern of frustration and embarrassment. Severe cases, the child reactions will be shame, fear of speaking, and lack of eye contact while speaking. Parents' reaction will be none usually in normal cases. Some parents may do a great deal of it though. Mild cases, they'll have some concern and there will be considerable degree of concern in severe cases. When do we refer such cases? We in normal cases, there is no requirement of a referral. Mild cases, if the treatment or if the stuttering continues for 6 to 8 weeks or maximum till 4 months, we'll have to refer. In severe cases, it is advisable to refer to us immediately. The correct time to seek help is when there is family history of stuttering, when the child has fear of talking or stops to talk, especially in groups or strangers. If there is problems in school, you notice a change in mood or temperament of the child and not explained by anything else. And if there is stuttering present for more than actually 6 to 8 weeks, we can wait, or maximum till 4 months. Strategies and techniques used, including these, which can be used by primary healthcare givers in normal disfluencies and mild cases. Excuse me. Speaking slowly and in a relaxed manner, breathing techniques while speaking, relaxation techniques, gradual building of confidence, relearning mono or multisyllables, especially those commonly repeated, behavior strategies that help anxiety and fear, speaking together in chorus. There are certain electronic devices and apps that are now available. Some clinical pearls, most parents blame themselves, so our duty is to reassure them that they are not responsible for this, but they do have a big part in this child's ability to cope up. Most children will outgrow the stuttering, especially if there is parent acceptance and reduced pressures. Intervention in preschool years can eliminate stuttering. Recurrence may be there, but it is transient and it can also be overcome. Usually this transient stuttering is seen after using certain medications for allergies or ADDs. Children with stuttering may also have certain incidents of asthma, atopic dermatitis, and hay fever. So physicians may be advised to screen for all these things. If at all parents ask you how they can help in this, Probably by being patient and non-judgmental, provide a relaxed environment and safe place at home, avoid question answer type conversation, but have fun and exciting things to do. Do not interrupt and prompt words. This is very important. And do not finish their sentences. Instead, wait and uh, wait in a calm manner. Praise the efforts and encourage the child. Do some breathing exercises with the child. Speak slowly to them. Sing songs together. Read loud. Recite some poetry. Educate the family and friends and school teachers, and watch for some bullying. If your child is feeling unusually stressed, help her to read, and in social gatherings, focus on the skills that child already has achieved. Thank you for patient listening.
Thanks, Dr. Ambika. Very wonderful insight into all of these,
Thank you.
especially the disfluency and everything.
Thank
Maybe
you.
you can stop sharing the screen, and then I think there's one question in the chat box. You can have a look.
Yes, ma'am. A question is from Jana. Isolated delay in milestone, how frequently need to follow? Usually, monthly follow-up is advised if there is a delay. For example, if there is no social smile by 2 completed months, we tell the mother to hold the baby at the distance. Giving example, the child has initial vision from the mother's face till the breast, so that is the distance that we advise the mother to hold a baby and show different expressions to the child and talk to the child more frequently, smile and laugh together, so that the child will learn how to recognize the face and initially learn the expressions from the mother. So if there is a delay, it is advised to follow up the next coming month.
Any other questions? So I see most of them kind of going towards the speech therapist once the stuttering happens. So
Yes,
that's what pediatricians tend to do. So
Yes.
how do we make sure that, we refer to a developmental pediatrician rather than the speech therapist directly?
It is better if we classify them as normal disfluency or mild or severe stuttering. So mild and normal disfluency, pediatrician or a developmental pediatrician can treat by themselves by the techniques, initial small techniques that I had shared. Only if it persists more than 6 to 8 weeks, even after all these corrective measures, then do we have to, then we should refer it to a concerned personnel.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I think, as practice,
Yes, ma'am.
generally people just tend to just kind of refer them to the speech therapist.
Yes, ma'am.
So we need to add value there, and
Yes,
probably
ma'am.
we need to make sure that we classify all of these.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we having this blue book with us? I'm not so sure that our NICU is giving it out. Do you
I'm
think
not.
so?
It's
Yeah.
not yet started here, ma'am.
Okay. Maybe we need to work towards it. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Any other questions? If there's nothing, then we'll probably end the session. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Ambika.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.